Mike here from Scuderia Audio, and today we're going to install my hidden subwoofer kit in a 458 Spider. So this video is basically an extension of the video where I introduce this new product. So for folks who haven't seen the first video, I'll just do a real quick review. On the 458 Spiders, with and without the JBL option, there are these panels that fit right behind the seats on the side, and this is a little speaker grill, and there's this adapter plate with a 1-inch tweeter and a 3-inch mid-range that's installed on the JBL option cars, one for each side, and the non-JBL option cars have a smaller bracket that holds one little mid-range speaker. And then I gave this long explanation about how it's never a good idea to have mid-range and tweeters behind you. For a review, just go check out that video. And what I basically did was remove the speakers from this plate, 3D scanned it, modified the drawing, and now I'm 3D printing these modified adapter plates out of nylon that hold these great mini subwoofers. Right? So these are 4-inch subs. They go down to 30 cycles. They have an incredible 20mm excursion. For their size, they put out a fantastic amount of bass. And this just, right? It bolts right in, exactly like the original one. So these things are flying off the shelves. I mean, a few people have installed them without the amplifier. It'll give you an improvement in sound, but if you want a vast improvement in sound, you want to install an amplifier, and this little Moscone Pico amplifier is perfect for this application. These are the same amplifiers I use in my Super OEM amplifier for the 360s and 430s. This was named Product of the Year by some European Standard Stereo Association, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember. But this thing is really cool. It's 200 watts of high-end power. It's got electronic crossover built in. It's fixed at 80 cycles, but it's perfect for subwoofer applications. It's got auto sensing, which means you don't have to run an amplifier turn-on wire to it. And it's small enough that there is actually the perfect place to mount this in the 458 Spider for this application. So, we're going to go out to the car and we're going to show how to remove this panel, how to take the OEM adapter plate off, how to install the new adapter plate, how to install the amplifier, and then how to reinstall the panel. So, as always, please be patient. I'm not James Cameron. We had some time constraints on the car, so we had a little bit of audio troubles and some of the shots weren't totally in focus. But if you just roll with it, I promise this will give you enough information that you'll be able to install these goodies. So, we have this fantastic 458 Spider sitting out in the garage. So, you know I love this part. Let's go play with the car! Okay, so we have this ultra gorgeous yellow 458 Spider, my dream car. So what we're going to do, show just how easy it is to remove this side panel so you can get to where you want to install the mini woofers. So there's the panel. So I'm going to pause for a second, grab a tool, I'll be right back. Okay, so now remember, there's a single fastener down here on the bottom. We have to get to it. As mentioned before, this gasket isn't really glued in place. It's just pushed into a channel. So you just want to pull it out. enough to see that the fastener is really easily accessible here. In fact, it wouldn't hurt to just lift this complete and out of the way to give it a little bit more room to work. Yeah, and then you just get your Allen wrench, remove the fastener, and it's ready to pull out. Now, it's best to do it a certain way, so what we're going to do, we're going to stop and move the camera to get the best view of how to actually take this out. Okay, so this basically swivels out, but the trick is, after you swivel it out just a little bit, you want to pull this section down so this fitting here will clear its companion fitting back here, and then it'll be clear to swivel out. Now, another thing is, you don't want this corner, even though it's wrapped in leather, to drag across this piece of leather, and you know, you don't want to take a chance on scuffing it or anything. So what you want to do is, once you grab it down here and pick it up just a little bit, just enough for you to get your hand under there, you get your hand under there and pull it out a little bit. It won't hurt it, just so you can get your fingers under there, so that when you start pulling this towards the front of the car a little bit, see, it won't be scraping there. Now, you see, I pull it out a little bit. Now, you want to grab the whole thing and pull it straight down, right? So this unhooks, and while you're doing that, it's basically pulling itself out. You just pull it down, you swivel it out, and then it just basically comes right out. Okay, so there's the hook piece that I was referring to. That's why you want to pull this down a little bit, so this hook will clear, and then it just swivels right out. Now, you see, here's your fixture that holds the speakers in place. Now, as mentioned before, since this car doesn't have the JBL option, it has a smaller fixture, and then the cars with the JBL option has a larger fixture, but every panel has these mounting points so that you can install the mini subwoofer brackets. So we're going to go get the bracket, and we'll be right back. Okay, so just one more quick thing. To get this connector off, it's a little bit of a trick, but all you have to do is just get a tool and then press straight down, and then it'll basically pop out of there. To put it back on, it just pops into place, but you just press down, that'll release the catch, and it comes right out. Okay, now we're going to take this piece to the workbench where we can swap out the fixture and upgrade the speakers. So you can tell there's been a little bit of custom mods here, which I really appreciate, but no worries. We can easily remove these. Actually, a pretty cool little setup. Upgraded speakers. So you want to keep these 4 fasteners, these are the Ferrari ones, and you'll be using these to bolt the new speaker set into place. Okay, and that takes care of that part. Okay, so we have our handy dandy 3D printed fixture, and we're going to install the mini subwoofers. Now these little things are fantastic. If you can believe it, they've got 20 millimeter excursion. They go down to 30 cycles. That's lower than the JL 8-inch subwoofer. So you can get a lot of deep bass out of them. Not a whole lot of bass out of one, but hey, you put 4 in the car, and now you're getting somewhere. Butyl rubber surround. And they've got this newfangled Neo, whatever they're called, I can't remember, magnets, but they're small, but they're super powerful. So these things bolt right in very easily. I'll just put a couple screws in there, and then we'll pause the camera, and I'll come back when it's ready to go. But I just want to show you that you can see that the angle is clocked on these. Well, that's by design. That's so they'll actually fit, because there really isn't much room. But it's basically a no-brainer. You just bolt them into place, and you don't want to over-tighten the screws, obviously, because this is nylon. But you know, you want to make sure that there's no play either. That they're bolted in solid. Okay, so now that we have the mini woofers installed, it's a good idea for the wiring terminals to be on the same side, obviously. So let me just grab our panel. And remember, since this is identical to the OEM panel, this piece just bolts right on like it was made for it, because it basically is made for it. So we just grab our OEM screws. I like to try to get this one in first because the magnet's kind of a little bit in the way, and I don't want to have to fight it, you know, and the alignment at the same time. So we just put that in there. The rest of these are real easy. Now remember that the whole panel flexes a little bit, so you're free to flex this to get the holes to line up. I mean, there's no way it won't work. See, I have to flex this one a little bit. But you have to do that for the OEM bracket anyway. It's by design. And that's basically it. Okay, so before we put the panel back on, I want to show you the ideal place to mount the little Moscone 200 watt high-end amplifier. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm trying to do this myself, but okay. Now we took the panel off here. Now remember, now if I can get the camera in here to show you, let me set the amplifier down. Now we're gonna just, let's see if I got a good focus here. Okay, now what we're gonna do for just a second, we're gonna temporarily move this cable here, right? So it has this little retainer, you just push on that and it just pops out. And we're just gonna, just for a second, we're gonna move this, let's see, we'll move it this way. Okay, now let me get the camera. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, you see that shelf right there? Is there a flashlight near here? I may have to come back with a flashlight to get a good shot of that shelf, but there's a shelf in there that's way more than enough room for the amplifier. So I'm gonna go get a flashlight and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm actually coming in from the other side. On the outside, I think I can do this better. Okay, it's a little bit tricky, but I'm holding the flashlight. There we go. You see that shelf? There's a shelf in there with nothing on it. There's all kinds of room. Now, I don't have three hands, so just bear with me for a second. I'm going to put the flashlight down. I'm going to grab the amplifier. I'm going to just put it right on that shelf. I mean, once you get it in there, you can wiggle it all around and there's plenty of room. All right, I'm going to get the flashlight again. Okay, you see that? The amp, all you have to do is just use the industrial strength adhesive backed Velcro that I provide in your kit, clean the shelf really good, and then just basically Velcro the amp onto that shelf. It's perfect because the Velcro acts as a cushion, as a shock absorber. And since the amp already has an electronic crossover and auto sensing, all you got to do is just run a heavy gauge, not a super heavy gauge, but a decent gauge, a 12-volt wire to there, and ground it to the chassis. We're not going to do that here, but it basically couldn't be easier. Then you just run your speaker outs to your new subwoofers on this side, and then you run another wire behind here. It's pretty easy, and you hook them up to the other side. Okay, now don't forget, like I just did. Now remember, we temporarily relocated that big cable, but once the amp is in there, when you put the cable back in its original position, it won't go anywhere near the amp. So it was just temporarily moving it so you could slide the amp onto that shelf. Then you just want to, open up that little harness thing again, put the cable in there, wrap this around, push it in there till it snaps into place. And now the car is back to 100% original. All right, so we're going to put the panel back in. It's basically the opposite of what we just did a few minutes ago, right? You want to kind of get it in place, and just use this piece as a guide, right? It's going to eventually mate to this, so kind of line it up. And remember, you have to, again, hold this corner with your finger so you don't scratch anything, and then you just kind of tuck it up in there and kind of finagle it into place. Pull that out a little bit again, it won't hurt it. And then once you do that, you start swiveling it in. And of course, in the process of doing this, it's going to naturally put upward pressure right in this area, which is perfect because you're pushing this fixture right back into its guide. So you just slowly, and then as you reach the end of your throw here, you can take some pressure off back here because it's not dragging anymore. And then put your hand down here and just push it in there. Just look down here until that slot is even with the hole where the screw is. And then you just put your screw in there. You can even start the screw a little bit. Since it isn't a hole, it's a slot, and then you just slide it right into place. And then all you do is you get your Allen wrench and you just screw it down. I'll do that 1 second. Yes, this is what I love about film. I can go grab tools instantaneously. So yeah, we're right back here with that single good old fixture. Now, don't forget, you have to hook up your speaker wires and everything. We're not going to do that here. I'm just showing you how to remove and replace this panel. So you just kind of, hold it a little bit tight with your hand, hold it in place. Screw down the machine screw. Okay, it doesn't have to be 5 million foot-pounds. That's great. And then you just, like any other gasket, you want to start where it's already pushed in, and then you want to start pushing and making progress, and then it'll self-guide. It'll guide itself in there. And then of course you want to kind of bow that a little bit so it tucks up underneath there where it should be, but just kind of hold it like that, and then just keep pushing, 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 pushing. Put that out there like that. And that's basically it. Factory fresh. Okay, well, that's about it. Now, what I didn't cover was you have to install a power wire and a ground wire to the amplifier. Well, it's really easy. The amplifier actually sits not 5 inches from a big junction box where there's a lot of wires going into there. So it'd be real easy to just tap off of one of the existing decently gauged 12-volt power wires. Make sure you put an inline fuse in there, and then you can run the ground wire anywhere in that area Just use an existing bolt and then ground the amp to the chassis and you're good to go. Okay, well, have a great day!